Well, welcome everyone. My name is Mike Slayton, and I am the owner of Slayton Consulting. And this is the second of our four-part series, Let's Build Fundraising Programs in Little Green Light. So today we're going to talk about donor retention. We talked about a grants program last week. Next week, we're going to be talking about mid-level donors, a mid-level donor program. And then our fourth one will be a planned giving program. So the idea being these are all four programs that any nonprofit can benefit from and that any nonprofit can build in Little Green Light, even a small scale program that a small shop, even a one-person shop can run using the tools that you've got in Little Green Light. So got a few more people coming in here. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear who is here and where you're from. So if you want to just drop your name in the chat and what organization you're with. And I'd be curious to know, if you had to give yourself a grade on donor retention now, what would it be? Are you an A plus, a B minus? How do you feel? Also, if you have once we do all the introductions, if you have questions, please pop them in there. But I would wait till we get people's introductions done. That way it'll be easier to find the questions in there. Okay, so I am keeping an eye on the chat and the participants here in the, okay, B minus or C plus. That's what I would kind of would be guessing a lot of us are at. All right, well, to go ahead and get started, there's a little bit about me, but I already told you about me. And Elena is great. I am really hoping that she's going to be able to be joining us here because she is an expert and much more knowledgeable in this field than I am. But we do, like I said, I did get the download from her, so I will do my best to do this as a one-man show. When it comes to donor retention, the statistics tell us that something like 50% of donors give one time and never come back. What Elena will talk about is that acquisition can hide a leak, but it can't fix it, right? You don't just need more donors. What we're usually trying to do is throw more donors, throw more dollars at the program. If we're not keeping the ones we've got, then adding more doesn't fix that problem. It just kind of accelerates the churn there. But retention is not about doing more. It's about losing fewer donors. This is not about more emails, more phone calls, or anything like that. It's about setting up repeatable steps so that you're losing fewer donors, right? If you can increase your donor retention by just a few percent, then you don't have to acquire as many new donors. In the long run, you're going to be much more cost effective, much more revenue from those ongoing relationships. Part of this is that follow-up should be triggered, not remembered. So when we are looking at donor retention, we want to have steps that don't have to live in our head. This is a system that we're going to build that we can live with without having to keep everything in our head where we're keeping so many other things. And part of this is all about data, which is why it really relies on your CRM. You can't retain what you can't see. If you don't have good donor data, then you're not going to you have much of a chance at retaining people. So it looks like we got a good group of people in here. I'm seeing some Bs, B minus, C, B. Nobody's an A plus, which is about what I would expect. I'd love to see the organization that is an A plus when it comes to donor retention. So the key tools we're going to look at in Little Green Light today to build this program are custom fields, although technically we're going to be using constituent categories because we'll be looking at those for individual constituent records. And then this is not exactly a Little Green Light tool and certainly not one of their terms, but I call it a self-automation workflow is what we're going to create. Little Green Light does not allow you to create automations where a gift happens and it triggers a series of events, but we can streamline things. We can set them up so that we've got what I call self-automation, where something that might take an hour, we can now do in 5 minutes or 2 minutes, depending on the task. We're going to use the email editor, and we'll be using the new email editor. I don't know if everybody switched over to that yet or not. It's a really great tool, a big improvement over the old email editor. We're going to look at some saved searches. We won't get into reports like we did last time, but we will be using some saved searches when it comes to our proactive stewardship. And then we'll also just look at some tasks we can set up to create the reminders that help our follow-up not be triggered and not have to live in our head. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on that. And without further ado, then, let's build a donor retention program in Little Green Light. So I'm going to go over to our dashboard here. Looks like that screen is still being shared there. So what we want to start with is what's the most basic thing we can do to start retaining our donors? Does anybody have a strategy that they like to use that they want to share? Anybody want to throw something in there? Something you do to help with donor retention, or anything that you find to be very effective, or maybe something you've tried you don't think it's effective? Feel free to add anything if you want in the chat there if you have something. What we're going to look at first is just knowing more about our donors. Okay, from Michaela, we've got thank you call after every gift. That's an absolutely wonderful strategy. And how did you hear about us? I think this is not just us telling them information. We want to be engaging in a conversation. I think that's a great first step. So one of the things we've done, handwritten notes to major donors, absolutely. Rapid thank you, acknowledgement, good. If you're not doing that, then everything else is going to build on that. So this is assuming that a gift has come in. If it came in online, they got a confirmation email, you've sent the acknowledgement, that's happening. And we're going to build on top of that. So one of the first things we're going to look at is adding some more information about our donors. So in this one, I have added a couple of donors, and we'll look at Karel Chapek first. And so we've added some categories here, some custom fields, which are called constituent categories for our constituents. And I have to click on this show all categories to see it. And what I've done is I've added two here. One is donor origin, and the other is their favorite bird. And so in this example, we're a bird charity, right? And we're going to be, we're raising money for something bird related, so we're getting that information. So under donor origin, I have a couple of options I can put in for somebody. And if I look at this, I'll see my options. So, we've got an alumni dinner. Did they come through Facebook? Did they come through another event? Are they a board connection? In this one, we're assuming we had an event called our Bird Bash. And so everybody who came in from that is that's being recorded as their origin. Now, the other category we've got is their favorite bird. So let's say at this event, we asked them to fill that out when they did the registration or something. We've got that in here. And so this is one where we're obviously going to have a lot of categories, right? We might have a lot of responses. So it won't be a narrow field like our origin where we might have 5 or 6 things. Favorite bird is something that could obviously expand. So we've got these 2 pieces of information about this donor. Now, what's nice about this is it's just going to allow us to know them a little bit better and to personalize things for them a little bit better. I really like this favorite whatever idea. I think especially like if you're an arts organization, if you can capture what's your favorite play, your favorite opera, your favorite author, any of those sort of things. I think that's a nice thing to know when you're reaching out to people. And we're going to be able to use it here in a minute in a merge field. So we'll be able to use it in a mailing. Now, the way these constituent categories are set up, if I click on this Bird Bash, it's going to automatically take me to a search where I've filtered by donor origin Bird Bash. So this shows me all of, let me clear my selected here. I was selected those in the system when I was practicing. I have my 6 constituents that come up who their origin is the Bird Bash, right? So they were all at this event. So that's something I can search for. If I hear from a donor and they give a gift and I want to see, where their origin was, I might look at the other donors from the same origin. There might be something we can find out about that of, it's 3 months later, they're giving a gift. Maybe we should reach out to these other ones. If we look here at Isaac Asimov, We've also got, of course, his favorite bird, and we got his donor origin. We've also got a lot of information about him with his class information, his school education. That's using the schools feature that we can turn on in Little Green Light. We're not going to get into that today, but that is a good way to add additional information. So, of course, if you're not familiar with adding custom categories, you can do that under settings and you just go to menu items and you can create them here. And I won't go through that, but we can if we want to in the Q&A later on. But I want to share an example. This is part of what made me think of the favorite bird example for this one. A client I've been working with, they're a school, and so for their donors, they like to find out if they played an instrument or if they played a sport or what their favorite subject was in school or something. So they record that information. And then when they have a student who maybe gets a scholarship or wins a violin competition or something, they can then go back and look at, okay, well, who in our donor base played the violin when they were in school? We can email them about this story or something like that. So that sort of personalization can go a long way with donors. So the next question is, when do we start worrying about donor retention and donor churn? So anybody got an answer on that? Do we let our donors like go for a couple of years and then before the gift? Yes, I was going to say right after the gift, but before the gift is even better. Yes, day one, right? Retention starts immediately. And so this is where, and I'm really excited to share this idea. I think Elena and I came up with a really great workflow here. We're going to set up a 3 email welcome series for every donor, right? So one of the things that statistics will tell us is engaging people in that first 90 days is really important. And there's different numbers. People say, if you get them to give a second gift within 90 days, they're X% more likely to be a long-term donor. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I know obviously, and we know intuitively, right, that if an organization is engaging with you after you've given a gift, you're going to be more likely to be supportive of that organization in the long run. So what we're going to do is we have a series, and we're going to look at who has given last month. So I've got a saved search here, and I can look at my first gift was last month. And when I pull this up, of course, it just gives me that. This is a nice relative search. So when I run this on March 1st, it's going to automatically update to be February, right? So it's always going to show me last month. And I've got 4 people who made their first gift to our organization last month. Now, this next step, we could build an email template. I haven't done that for this. What I've done is I've just gone into mailings and I have 3 emails that are drafts. And really, these could just live as drafts and you could just clone them every month if you wanted to. So donor retention number 1, we're going to go in and we're going to edit it. And so I'll start with the recipients, right? Of course, I've got my saved search here, but I could always run the saved search again and refresh it here. And so I've got my 4 people. It's only going to be 3 because one of them doesn't have a valid email address. So I've got my 3 people who donated last month for the first time. Now, when I go on to content, I have created a template here, although technically it's not a template. I just created the email, but I can reuse this. And I'm using the first name merge field up here. I should correct my typo. We're using the first name merge field in the salutation, of course. And then we're using that favorite bird category here, right? It's probably a little corny. This is not a session on how to write a good email. But what we can do then when we go forward, of course, we see, remember how you felt the first time you saw a sparrow. Your contribution helps support our work, providing access to nature and encouraging local children to love our birds like the sparrow. And for Gary Larson, it's the dodo. And for Roddy McDowell, it's the blue jay. So we've got a little personalized gift. And in this first email in the series, we're just acknowledging. right? But they've gotten their acknowledgement. This is a couple weeks later, probably. We would probably run this at the beginning of the month. Of course, today is the 25th, but if we're capturing everybody that gave in January, in the first week of February, you know, it's a little bit of a lapse there, but we got to follow up with kind of a personal note from the executive director saying, I'm glad you found us. Thank you for your gift. We're acknowledging that. Um, we can schedule this. And so we can just schedule this one. Let's say we're going to schedule this one for tomorrow and we're going to send it at 3:19. That's fine. And now we're going to go back to our emails and we'll go back to drafts and we'll go to donor retention number 2. And really, I'm going to clone this one so that it stays in my drafts. I've got my saved search there. I've got my content. This one is a little bit about why we do this work, right? We're inviting them in a little bit to see what we're up to, right? So we've said thank you for your gift. A week or so later, 3 days later, you whatever cadence you want, we're going to be reaching out to them and saying, let me tell you a little bit more about the organization. And again, not asking them for anything, just sort of building that relationship. And I didn't use any merge fields in here, but of course we could. And then we can schedule this, of course. And so this one, if we're sending that one on the 26th, let's go ahead and send this one out next Tuesday. And we'll send it at 11 a.m., not p.m., 11 a.m. And we'll save that. And then, of course, I'll go into this third email and set this up once my computer loads. And the third email is where we're going to be inviting them, inviting them to something, inviting them to be engaged, inviting them to an event. Maybe we've got a standing point of entry luncheon or something, come have lunch with the executive director once a month. We're doing something where we're inviting them. We've got a little bit of a call to action here. So go back to my drafts, donor retention number 3. I'm going to clone this. And again, same, refresh my search there. Okay, yeah, there. If you do set these up, you have to refresh your search. If I schedule this email, then anybody who qualifies between now and the time it gets sent out will not be added. So this is okay, of course, because I'm using last month. So there's not going to be any new donors, unless, of course, I go back and I add a check. If I add a check that came in, and I add it today and it was January 31st, they're not going to be automatically in my search unless I refresh it. So that doesn't come up a whole lot, but good to know. This one, let me go to the content here. So this one is inviting them to be a monthly donor, right? We're doing something where we're giving them a call to action. That could be, whatever's appropriate for you. And then we're going to schedule this. And if we are doing the second one on March 3rd, we're going to do this one on March 12th. And so we'll schedule that. The conventional wisdom, of course, is you want to send Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. You don't want to send Monday or Friday. I don't know, again, if the statistics really bear that out, but that's the conventional wisdom. So we've now done something that took me about 5 minutes. And I was talking my way through it. So it's even faster if you're not doing that. We've now got something we've set up where in at most 10 minutes, 15 minutes, once a month, we can schedule this series to all of our new donors from last month. I think this is great because it's a great way to engage people. This is what I call a self-automation, right? We haven't automated this completely, but we have streamlined it. And what's actually kind of a bonus about this is when you have a self-automation that you have to do the steps, it helps you see if there's an issue, right? Maybe the spouse of your founder made a donation for the first time, or maybe somebody who's a board member, they have a new email address and they made a donation and created a duplicate. For whatever reason, maybe you've got somebody in here that it would be inappropriate to send them the new donor journey. So you can pull them out because you're pulling this list and sort of seeing it manually. It also lets you do some if there's a change, there was an event, maybe there was a tragedy locally or something, and you don't want to send out an email that same day, or you need to change the wording or something. It kind of gives you a chance to avoid some of those automation faux pas that can happen when we're fully automated. So that's why I think the self automation is not a bad thing. Is there a concern that people might be annoyed by getting so many emails? That's a good question. Um, I think the way we've spaced this out, we're sending them three over 3 weeks, which I feel like is reasonable. With the last one being that invitation, maybe we're inviting them to sign up for our email list or something. We haven't just dumped them onto our email list and we're just, sending them a lot. These are personalized emails that are going out to them saying, thank you for your donation. Here's what your donation supports. We'd love to get you more involved. And then kind of stepping back, right? If we haven't converted them by then to a monthly donor or whatever, we step back, they're in the database, we can engage them later, but we're not going to be emailing them once a week for all time. But what a lot of people, the people who do email, will tell you is it doesn't hurt to over email people, right? People are giving to us because they want to know about the organization, they want to support our work, they want to know about the organization, and I know I get a lot of emails and I don't read them all. Sometimes it takes 3 emails from an organization before I'll actually read it. A lot of times just knowing, oh, I see that I got an email thanking me for my gift. Well, I don't actually sit and open it and read it, but I know that I got it. I feel good about that. And we'll get into the email question here. Yeah, we got some questions there. We'll save that for the end. Can LGL send reminder notification before a scheduled email goes out? That's sort of a cue to update the email list if necessary. That's a really good idea. The answer is no, but we can create a task. And so that's part of where we can make this something that we're going to be triggered. It's going to be triggered, not having to remember it. So we can create a recurring task on the first Monday of every month to set up our emails. And then I think it'd be a great idea to maybe create a task at the same time. Or you could, of course, do this in your calendar, just create a calendar reminder for yourself that email's going out and maybe you should go in and check it. I'm based in Louisville, Kentucky, and we had a awful plane crash last year, UPS plane crash, and it was just, there were several deaths, and it just, the whole city was just in shock. And it was one of those times like, oh my gosh, you make sure you don't have an automated email going out into people's email inboxes right now when it's going to land and be totally inappropriate. So that's one of the risks of automation, I think, sometimes is you can do things that end up feeling very insensitive or they land at the wrong time. So moving on, I want to move on then to our third layer here, right? We've built our first layer, we've added some information. Our second layer, we've created this donor email journey, and we'll come back to these questions in the chat here at the end of this. But the third layer is where we're going to start some proactive stewardship. And so what we've done here, our donor retention has started with this first gift, but we want to keep it going. So I've created a saved search. And of course, you can create as many as you need to. One of my saved searches is the first gift was last month. And this search is going to tell me anybody whose last gift was with our annual campaign 2 years ago. So I've created, a complex search here. So I've saved it so I don't have to redo this every time. And it's going to tell me anybody whose gift date was 2 fiscal years ago, any kind of gift, but they did not give a gift last year to the annual campaign. So in 2026? So they gave a gift, any kind of a gift in 2024, but they did not make a donation to our annual campaign in 2025, right? For whatever reason in our strategy, that's what we've looked at. We could run this search and say who came to an event the last 2 years and didn't come this year, whatever it is. Or we can also be forward thinking and see who came to the event the last 2 years before the event and make sure we've invited them. But we're going to assume we've had a lapse here. So we've done this search and we find 3 people that gave in 2024, but didn't give to our capital or to our annual campaign in 2025. They might have given some other gift, but they didn't give to that. And so what I've done here, what I can do with these, if I check them, I can easily create, a task through the bulk edit. So I could create a task for the executive director to call all these people if they're, if we, or if we want to prioritize that. But for this, I'm just going to create an email, and we'll call this retention lapsed. And I have a category here for retention to keep my templates and emails clean. And so it carries over my search, of course. And then I go to content. And now I am going to use a template. And I created an annual report reminder. So this one is an email that goes out to them and just says, hey, I want to share our annual report with you. It was a great year. Here's a link to it. Let me know if you have any questions. So this is not telling them they've lapsed. It's not asking them for money. It's just a nice chance to re-engage with them and see if we can get them, kind of begin that conversation. Maybe they forgot. Maybe we just didn't get through to them in asking last year, whatever the issue is. This is just a nice, simple way to reach out and be proactive. So we can build some saved searches. We can build some reports that are going to look for those kind of criteria. Now, what criteria are going to be appropriate is going to depend on your organization, but that's where you can really think strategically about what are we trying to get people to. And I think it also is helpful there to know what is the journey we want our donors to come on, right? Is it important that they've come to this event? Is it important that they've given to the annual fund or they're a monthly donor? Where are we trying to get them to? And then it's easier to sort of see, okay, well, have they made that step or not? Do we need to get them to? So that's the third layer, right? So we've got constituent categories where we can record more information. We've got our self-automated three email welcome series. And now we're going to layer on top of that some proactive searches, so we can find donors who have lapsed or who are in danger of lapsing, and get a little bit more than just a lie bunt, right? We can get a little bit more than just looking for who gave and who hasn't given, and we might find some behaviors that we think, okay, this seems to be something that donors, they don't attend this event and then they sort of drop off. So maybe we want to make sure if they didn't get to the event, if they didn't download the annual report, we want to engage them, whatever that's going to be for your organization. So again, and I'm sorry that Elena was not able to join us, and I hope everything's okay with her. So I apologize that I did my best. I invited her because she is definitely an expert in donor retention and mid-level donors, which is what we're going to talk about next week. So my skill is in building the system that goes with the strategy and aligning the two. So poor substitute that I am, I hope I have done her justice there. So I know we've got some questions in the chat here, and I'm going to go back and try to catch those and see if we have anything else. And if anybody else has any questions, just go ahead and put them in there. So let's see. How do you prevent the email from LGL from going into promotions or spam? That is a really good question. One of the things about that, and this is why you want to do some segmenting with your email list. The better your open rate, the more likely that spam filters are not going to check, are not going to filter it out. If you're sending to 1,000 people and 100 people are opening it, or 50 people are unsubscribing every time, those are going to hurt you with, and I'm a little bit out on thin ice here because I'm not an email platform expert, but those are going to hurt you with the metrics that the spam filters use, right? They have ways of tracking who's sending the email and giving you some scores, basically. So if you are having a very high unsubscribe rate and a very high unopen rate, that's going to hurt you in terms of getting through. But I think it's, it is harder. It seems like a lot of email systems are very much designed to send things that people are subscribed to the promotions. I think this is part of where one-on-one contact is really important. Sending occasional personal emails from the executive director, doing some calls, and also just reminding people, to set their email to accept you as a sender, right? But and I don't know, and maybe somebody else can speak to this, if using MailChimp, I love the email editor in here now. I think it's really good. I think you can send just as good an email in there as you can in MailChimp. And then save a little bit of money because you've already got it in there, but you might have better luck using one of these other platforms. Okay, so you can put on your socials, check your email for something specific you've sent, or you can give directions on how to add us to your contacts. I do like that idea of check your email on your socials, right? If people are following you on the socials, that also lets them know if they're interested in getting on your email, that they can do that. That you have an email list, right? If they don't know about it. I know I check my spam folder at least once a week anymore because it does seem like so many things get in there. Um, Suggestions for just starting this with current donors. So if we have people, I would say you can definitely start this with new donors, right? Start it coming in with new donors. One way you can start it with current donors, if you have this information, is to do a birthday greeting, right? If you have people's birth dates, which you may or may not, you could do a similar search to what we did and see everybody whose birthday is next month. Let's schedule an email for them on March 1st saying, hey, we know your birthday's coming up. Excited to have you here. You could also just do a personal email, or personal feeling email from your ED or from somebody in the organization, and send it to people in batches, right? And just saying, hey, John, hey, Steve, we're so excited that you're a donor. We're happy to have you in here. Would love to hear if you have any thoughts. Just something that engages them in a conversation. Or an invitation to anything that's coming up, right? A personal invitation, in addition to whatever they've received. I think that's a great way to start, and just keep track of what is going to work, right? We use MailChimp for our larger email list. Do you recommend we export this list to MailChimp or use LGL for the individual emails? That's one I don't know. I have used MailChimp. I'm not a big fan of MailChimp. So I like to keep things in Little Green Light when I can, because I think it's just easier for me to keep everything in one universe. However, if you're getting complex, if you have a huge list, there may be some real reasons to go to MailChimp. I would be interested to know if the success rate, if the open rate is higher if in there. But I think the email editor, you have to do a little bit of manual work that MailChimp does for you. But I'm just so impressed with this new email editor. I think it's such a great improvement over where they used to be. Let's see. I want to see moving over to MailChimp would add more complexity to this process. It seems like a more personal email when coming through LGL. I agree with that. I think this works for this sort of thing. Let's see. Got some comments here on LGL versus Constant Contact. Is anyone doing something like this already, and what's been your experience? What would you do differently? Ooh, that's good. Yeah. Do we have is anybody using something like this? I'd love to hear. Phil, go ahead and unmute. Liberty, yeah. Do you want to unmute and tell us what you're up to?
Yeah, it's not exactly like this because it's not automated. And we are running it through our email platform right now, though I am considering going through LGL because I don't like our email platform and it auto unsubscribed a bunch of supporters. Um, but last year when I started, we introduced emails specifically to donors every 6 to 8 weeks that are just like personal update messages from our executive director. And those have been really popular. Um, it goes out to people who have given within the past 24 months. Um, wi- but it's not a dynamic list because it's not through LGL. If we were doing it in LGL, it could actually be within the past 24 months. And it goes out to about 200 people. And I get at least 2 to 3 responses every time. So people really like them. And it's a really simple way to keep people connected to the work that we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I think we overcomplicate content sometimes, or we think we have to cram in so much. And I don't think people want long emails, right? A little bit of an update or a question. You know, I think anything that engages in invites them into a conversation can be very successful. We don't have to be sending them a newsletter, every month that's got 14 things in it. I think anything, and of course, some organizations, again, if you're an arts organization, you can send some pictures of rehearsal and things like that. Other organizations, it's a little harder to have a kind of a hook in. There's a couple questions in here I want to be sure to get to. Somebody said, oh, where did it go? Okay, I think somebody replied and it moved here. There was a question about the search, and there was a question about um, okay, the search was it constituents or fundraising, and how do we know our open rate in LGL? Okay, that's what I wanted to look at. And this is, of course, a demo account, so it won't be real. But when I go to my sent emails, and this one, yeah, probably it's probably a 0 because I sent it to nobody. But when I open the email, I'll see my open rate here. I'll see my delivery rate, and I can look at the recipients, and it will tell me, who it was, and it'll tell me if it bounced or if it was undelivered, and then I can resend it or I can preview it. I can also see this when I go into somebody's account. When I go down to their related activity, I can see I've got a pending email. I've got 3 pending emails because I've scheduled them for all 3 of the donor retention. But I can see this one was undeliverable, right? I can see that as well as their history. So, yeah, so you can look at the open rate by looking at the email itself under the sent column. And then you can look and see if an individual received it and if they opened it. I will say, I think the open rate is inflated, and the click rate is a little inflated because of spam folders, right? So I think some of the spam filters, it counts as opening it, it counts as clicking a link when it's checking it. So the numbers themselves are not necessarily 100% accurate. And I don't think that's a little green light problem. I think that's a problem across different email platforms. But what you could definitely see are your trends, right? You'll send something out and it may tell you it's got a 50% click rate. Well, it doesn't, right? It didn't get a 50% click rate in an hour of being sent out. But if you see that 50%, the next one is 30 or 75 or something, then you've gone up or down relative to that performance. There was a question about, yes, open and click rates are inflated regardless of platform. I will send a copy of the Zoom recording out to everybody. And happy to talk with anybody, individually about this. Especially, these are the sorts of things. Not to turn this into a sales infomercial, but this is the sort of thing where I can come in, somebody else can come in, and build you these automations, in a couple of hours. They're going to save you time, for forever. I did that for another client where we built some Flex Importer templates because they're pulling in information from several different sources and spending all this time cleaning it up. And it's like, well, let's do this where we can now do it in 5 to 10 minutes. So Little Green Light has a lot of things where if you take the time to build the automation, or I call it an automation, if you take the time to build the tools, it's going to save you a lot of time. I do want to get to this question about how we did the search. And it was a constituent search. So the saved search here was last gift. So I'm looking for all donors where their gift date is 2 years ago and they do not have a gift date that is last fiscal year. I think there certainly would be a way to build the same search on the gift side. But I think let me go pull the save search up again. I think this is better because it's going to give you the 3 donors, the 300 donors, and not the number of gifts, of course, which won't line up with that. Now, if you wanted to get their gift history, and I'm going to go into reporting here just a little bit because I think the reporting in Little Green Light is the best kept secret. So we got our donors and we want to export this. So what we can do is, and I won't go too deep into this, but we can build our report now. We want their first name and their last name and whatever else. And we want their constituent category field. We want to know their donor origin. We don't need to know their favorite bird for this. And we want their gift fields. And this is where we can do something really, really cool. I can do total giving this fiscal, and I can do total giving last fiscal. So now I've got those two, and I can do my quick preview and see what that looks like. So I can see, I got $5,000 this year and I got $250 last year. But now I can do, and I'm gonna hit OK on these fields to collapse them. I can add this total giving really kind of as much as I want. So I can say total giving. We did 2026, 2025. So we'll say 2024. I want the total giving amount for dates 1/1/24 to 12/31/24. And so I can add that sort of column. So now I see what everybody gave in 2024. Now, maybe I want these in chronological order. So I can do that. And now I get 2024, 25, 26. But then I also want to know, and I'll add this again, this custom, I'm going to add another. And I want to know maybe their total giving at events, right? And so I want all dates, but I want to know which events they came to. Did they come to the gala, the Bird Bash, trivia night? And this will probably give me nothing because I don't think I have data in there. But if I did, and I could separate out each of those events. So that's where the reporting can be really helpful in seeing, you see who lapsed. You can say, okay, well, they gave it the gala. They didn't give it anything else. And we didn't have a gala this year. So we lost their gift or whatever. But there's really some, it can get frustrating if you're trying to find that information in the search. But when you pull the search and you decide who's in the search, then you pull the report and you can pull out this information, which can be just really, really powerful and helps you just make so many better decisions or be better informed about your data. So that's my plug for the little green light reporting. So let me wrap up here. So next week we're going to be back and we're going to talk about mid-level donors. And if you're interested in, checking out my website, you can go there. Elena, who is great, and I am looking forward to having her next week so that everybody can hear from her. That's her website. Thank you all so much. Happy to stick around for a few more